What's up, everybody? Y'all know who it is. We back again. Season 3, Episode 5. We told you it was going to be different this year. This week is no different. I'm rocking solo, but not for long. Stay tuned. Hey, everybody. Welcome again to the Takeover. I promise you this is going to be one of the best hour, maybe a little more today. We've got a special episode of your life today. As usual, it's me, your boy Marcellus. You can call me Marcellus, you can call me Sellers, you can call me Flavor, you can call me Sell, you can call me whatever, but you can't call me empty because I am full of the love of Christ. Now, we're doing something special again. Justice couldn't be with us this week, and that's okay. We're going to talk to him a little later, but we're starting a family series that because, we're talking about what's really going on out there in society. And one of the things that's going on is there's an attack on the family. But we want to talk about the family ties that bind. Not bind, but bond. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to break it into 3 parts. The first part is this week, and you've heard of growing up hip-hop. We're going to talk about growing up PK. That's right, growing up as a preacher's kid. We're going to talk about that today and next week. And in the following show, we're going to talk about, I'm not even going to tell you. I ain't going to tell you, but just know it's going to be a doozy. You don't want to miss none of these next few shows coming up. You don't want to miss none of them, but don't miss these. While you at it, hit like right now. Smash the thumbs up button. Close the live chat for a second. Smash that thumbs up button. Like this video. Later on, you can share it and all that, but right now, just hit like. Don't. You know what? It's free. Likes cost you nothing. So why not? But as usual, my thoughts are my thoughts. And whatever I say is coming directly from me. So don't go looking for nobody else if you don't like what I say. My thoughts aren't necessarily indicative of anybody else, including Pastor Lonnie W. Brown and Lady Francis Brown or Kingdom Heaven Ministry. So just come at me if you don't like what I say or you want to discuss something even further. I love it. So leave us a comment. Send an email. Do whatever. We'll discuss it later. But as we open as our intro thoughts, we want to open with Ephesians 6, 1 through 4. It's a very familiar scripture. We're going to come from the New Living Translation. It says, "Children, obey your parents because you belong to the Lord, for this is the right thing to do. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise. If you honor your father and mother, things will go well with you, and you will have a long life on the earth." And we've talked about these scriptures before. Father, do not provoke your children to anger by the way you treat them. Rather, bring them up with discipline and instruction that comes from the Lord. So we're going to talk, because every PK out there knows that these scriptures was rehearsed and told to us over and over again growing up. And we're going to talk about how these impacted us and a whole lot of other things. But before we do, we got our current events. So y'all know we're going to start with our COVID Chronicles. And there's a fear from some of the professionals out there that there's going to be a spring spike. Despite all the vaccine production, despite the numbers going down and trending downward, there's a fear there's going to be a spring spike because, different states are opening up at different rates. And some people are just going, Texas in particular, they just like, hey, open the floodgates. And there's been some other states that are following suit as well. So just be careful, man. Still be vigilant and be diligent, like we said. You don't know. They're still having these cases break out in schools and different things like that. And people are getting exposed and they're not knowing. So then they got to quarantine and all this. So just be careful. And I know Flint right now is setting up an outdoor vaccination site what they're calling a mega site at the airport, at Flint Bishop Airport. And the word is we're going to get 11,000 of the Johnson & Johnson single dose vaccines next week. So if you're in the category of 1A and 1B, you can set up an appointment and get in to that vaccination situation. They're getting ready to expand it to the next phase, 50-year-olds and over, starting on the 8th, 50-year-olds and over with pre-existing conditions. And then I believe the 22nd, it'll be just anybody over 50. So, they're starting to expand that reach for the vaccine for those who choose to get it. But just remember, what do we always say? COVID is still real, okay? It's still real. But in recent news, the other day, the FDA did authorize the first molecular non-prescription at-home test. Now, this was the same test that the NBA used in their bubble last year when they were having the playoffs, where they had 0 positive tests in that bubble. And so the FDA has authorized this. I don't know how much it's going to cost or when it'll be readily available, but just keep in mind that there'll be a home test that is approved by the FDA. So, you can, be sure that you don't have it. So that there's been a relief plan talked about in Congress. It went through the House, got approved, went to the Senate. They were not trying to hear that. They were at an impasse because they wanted some language change, some dollar amounts lessened. They wanted less people to get the stimulus, a few other things. So they sent it back. It was reworked in the House. And as of this recording, it is approved in the Senate. So that is, West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin was the main opposition to the plan, and they pushed it through the Senate. And so you should see some help coming your way financially, should you qualify for that, and should some businesses qualify as well. So it's a $1.9 trillion relief plan. And we know that some people are really having struggles during this pandemic with their jobs, not working or closing, being laid off. A lot of things are happening. So it'll be good. In other news, Federico Klein, he's a former Trump appointee. He was charged in the Capitol riot. He complained to the judge that he wanted a jail cell. He wasn't able to sleep because his jail cell had cockroaches. Now, I don't know about you. I just don't feel sorry for him. I know that might be wrong, but I just don't. I don't feel sorry for him at all. It is what it is. Now, don't get me wrong. Nobody should be subject to roaches crawling on them in their bed, even people in jail. We're not talking cruel and unusual punishment. I don't believe in that. But I just don't feel sorry. I mean, the Lord's still working on me. I told y'all, still working on me. The NBA All-Star game is Sunday. So who you got? You got Team LeBron or you got Team Durant? I'm going Team LeBron. I'm going Team LeBron. I think you got a better team. They ain't going to pull it out. But it'll be interesting this year, the All-Star game. They'll have some festivities before the game, three-point contest, skills competition. They're going to have the game. At halftime, they're going to do the dunk contest. So it'll be interesting how long that takes and whether the All-Stars go into the locker room and they stay out and watch it. It'll be very interesting to see how it goes. I truly hope that people stay safe, don't go down there trying to party and do it like a regular All-Star weekend, because this is not that. So that's coming up Sunday. I did want to bring some somber news in the Flint area. There's 3 suspicious deaths that are happening. You'll see a picture on your screen. All 3 of these deaths are blamed on overdoses, and all of these overdoses are on a bad batch of drugs. Now, I know a few years ago, I want to say, unfortunately, I found some guys, but fortunately, I did find them and see that they were not conscious, and was able to get them help. And they had got a hold of some bad drugs. And so these 3 deaths in Flint that happened recently, all guys in their 40s and 50s, and all with the same thing. They're lacing these drugs with fentanyl. And they're having these overdoses, and it's taking people out. So listen, man, this is another reason just not to do drugs. You just don't know what these people are putting in it to stretch it out or to make it more potent or whatever the case may be. So you're taking a big chance every time you go buy that from somebody, or you go use it from somebody else who got it from somebody else who got it from somebody else who you don't know where they got it from. And we can get all into where drugs come from and the hierarchy of, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just being safe. I'm talking about just taking care of yourself. So just be careful. Just don't do it. Also, 2 teenagers found a whole human foot inside of a boot while they were fishing in Saginaw County, in the Flint River portion of up in Saginaw. I'm a fisherman, and that's a catch I never want to catch. That's messed up. I don't even want to talk about that. I don't even want to think about catching a foot. Can you imagine catching a foot? Weird. But anyway, before we get in our main topic, y'all know we talk about what happens in the church sometimes, and today is no different. You know, with the advent of hiring musicians, it used to be musicians were homegrown. They were grown in the church, and they kind of, you know, everybody wanted to be the next organist or the next drummer. But now churches are having to hire musicians, and they're, you know, bringing them in from outside. And so they, you know, musicians have a tendency to want to tiptoe out during the word. You know, they don't feel like they need to hear it or something. But every once in a while, God sends a message.
But if God said it, it's going to come to pass. The enemy will try to get you to, start doubting the word and the will of God. But you got to get into a place where you don't doubt the word, but you.
And I know you might say, well, that wasn't that bad. It just made a little noise. Yeah, God said, just stay tuned.
Malachi.
I told you. Listen, sit down there and get you some word and quit trying to tiptoe out. I know you feel like you're a musician, but God is telling us we need our musicians to be ministers again, not just playing a note. Amen? Amen. But you know what? We're going to talk about today, like I told you in the open, this is part 1 of our Family Ties That Bond series. Growing up in the church presents some challenges, but growing up as PKs, that can be something different. Sometimes we wonder now why some of those PKs are falling all the way away from the faith and boldly do so. You see it on your social media, boldly talking about how they don't believe anymore. And we just haven't talked about it in the church, you know, and addressed these issues of growing up in these families where one or both parents are ministers or pastors. It's not always what it seems. But if we want to get real about what's going on in this world right now, I bet most of us know at least one PK and probably know at least one that has strayed far away. Now, being a PK, like a preacher's kid, like I said, is not bad. Not bad at all, but it is different. And being different can have both good and bad portions to it, right? We want to delve into all that today. So the truth will be told, and people will better understand what we go through as PKs and can adjust if need be. I'm a PK. Proud PK. But it is different, and we need to talk about it. We need to understand what's going on, and maybe we'll understand a little bit better on what they might be going through in our own churches, right? But we're going to start with family. We want to look at family because that's the overriding message of this, the family. And in Words in a Different Light, Pastor Brown, you know, his book, he knocked it out the park again. Kingdom Family is a faith camp authorized to train men and women, insisting on lifestyles that yield purpose. That's the family. That's what the devil is attacking. When I told you it's an attack on the family, the devil doesn't want that faith camp where people are being trained to have a lifestyle yielding of purpose. My aunt sent me a video yesterday, I believe, and it talked about not reaching your potential, but reaching your purpose. And I thought, wow, that's deep. But I don't go into that. I'm not going to go all the way into that. It says family is the basic unit responsible for relationship formation and character development, promoting the expansion and advancement of the kingdom of God so all can experience the enjoyment of a kingdom lifestyle. So this is our unit. The family structure is the unit responsible for how we form relationships and how we develop our character. So if I'm the devil, that's what I'm going to attack. That structure, because that structure is what builds people up that are strong enough to defeat me. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to attack that structure and that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. So there's 3 laws associated with kingdom family: dedication, commitment, devotion or moral demand, destiny, focus of the training. So our family, as a family unit, we ought to be bonded and dedicated to each other, devoted to one another, but devoted to God as the leader. That's our moral demand. And then the training that we're being trained on, the focus of it is our destinies. Where are we going? What are we going to be? And how are we going to do it as a man or woman of God? But let's look at the word, because let's delve into some of the scriptures that talk about family. Proverbs 22:6. We heard this a lot. Direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it. So that bears the question, why doesn't that always work? Right? The Bible says, direct them on the right path. When they're older, they won't leave it. Train them a child in the way it should go. When he's older, he won't depart. But at some point, it still is that child's decision, or that young adult, or that teenager. At some point, they have to be accountable for their own actions and their own decisions. And so some people still blaming their parents 50 years old. And you still blaming your parents for the way they raised. No, it's not them anymore. That's you. That's your decisions that you're making right now. And so that's why it doesn't seem like that always worked. When I trained them, I did what I could. I trained them. You're right. That's all you can do. Now it's up to them. And we see it in other Proverbs. Proverbs 10:1 says, the Proverbs of Solomon, a wise child brings joy to a father. A foolish child brings grief to a mother. Proverbs 13:1 says, a wise child accepts a parent's discipline. A mocker refuses to listen to correction. Come on. Proverbs 15:20-21. Sensible children bring joy to their father. Foolish children despise their mother. Foolishness brings joy to those with no sense. A sensible person stays on the right path. My goodness. Woo. Woo. Did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that, man?
Yes, sir. Excuse me, I had to dance. I had to give him praise, because he's worthy.
Y'all forgive me. I had to dance. I had to get my step in. But sensible children bring joy to their father. Foolish children despise their mother. But the next verse is the one we're going to talk about. Foolishness brings joy to those with no sense. And that's why people can get confused by foolishness. Some things that seem foolish, but it brings joy to those that aren't thinking, that they don't have any sense. And they walked away from their senses. They walked away from their training. A sensible person will stay on that path, even with bumps in that path, even with hurdles, even with obstacles that they face. They'll still stay on that path. And that takes a great deal of faith. Not just faith, but it takes a great deal of faithfulness. See? So that's why what it takes for a PK or anybody else, but specifically PK, to continue on that path is faithfulness. Because when we become accountable for ourselves, our faithfulness is the one that has to stay on path. Not your mother and your father, they can't keep you on the path anymore. You're accountable now. What is faithfulness? Well, let's look back in the book. Kingdom faithfulness is a commitment to, okay? Firmness, accuracy, integrity, truthfulness, humility, frankness, and unpretentious lifestyles, nurturing excellence for spiritual success. Firmness, accuracy, integrity, truthfulness, humility, frankness, unpretentious lifestyle. This is how we remain faithful. We stay firm into our beliefs. We stay accurate with our word. We stay in integrity with what we do. We're committed to the truth. And that's what's going to nurture spiritual success. Kingdom faithfulness is displaying a commitment to the truth, the processes, systems, and procedures that guarantee the expansion and advancement of the kingdom of God and promotes the ability to experience enjoyment and enjoy the pleasure of the kingdom lifestyle. So we have to commit to the truth. And the minute you start to think, is that true anymore for you? Or I'm not sure if that's true. That's when we start wavering. That's when the processes and systems we stop following. And when we stop following those processes, now I'm not talking about traditions necessarily. I'm definitely not talking about the traditions of men. Some traditions is crazy. Some traditions we should have never practiced. We did it, but they're not all the traditions aren't wrong. Just those traditions of men, not traditions of God aren't wrong. Okay? But we're not necessarily talking about that. We're talking about those processes and systems that have been set in place. Honor your father and mother, that your days may be longer. It's a system. It's a process. You stay committed to that truth. There's a promise attached to it, right? That's what faithfulness is all about. There are 4 laws of that faithfulness: accuracy, correctness, authenticity, convincing, affinity, connection, assurance, confidence. See, when you're faithful, you don't have to waver. Your confidence is there because you're sure. You're sure of the promises of God. You're sure of the truth of God because you're committed to that truth. And that is what is going to play a big role in keeping on that right path. That's what's going to play a big role. But we're going to talk about that a little further with some PKs. We're going to talk about that because, and I know this show, I know some of y'all might be thinking, man, I'm not a PK. Why does this appeal to me? I'm telling you, just stay tuned. Just trust me on that. Y'all know him as JB, also known as Justice Brown. Welcome, to your show.
Thank you for welcoming me.
So, Justice, though, you know what, man? You and I have some unique, as much as we're different, we have some unique things that are very similar about us. And one of them we share is that we're both sons of preachers. And that, I don't know if everybody really understands what all goes into that, Justice. So I want to ask you a few questions and you tell me about how you feel about these things and how you dealt with it growing up and still being the youngest one. So you're the only preacher's kid that's kind of still a kid, even though, you're 19, but you still got that teen on the end of it for now. But when did you realize, you think, that it was different being a PK than just any regular kid?
Well, I think it's when I hit middle school. I went to Kingdom Academy, and that wasn't a unique experience per se to me at the time. But when I hit middle school, it was like an awakening, like, oh my God, these people are crazy. Like, they're swearing, they're doing this, they're doing drugs and all this stuff. I'm like, okay. So I'm trying to go through this as a Christian, as a preacher's kid. And I'm going to my parents, I'm telling them about this stuff. I'm going to my grandparents, telling them about this stuff. And it's not like we can have a normal conversation about it. It's like, well, when Saul was trying to kill David, and I'm like, this isn't the same situation. I'm not David and they're not Saul, so it's just like, just tell it to me straight sometimes. I'm going through something. I just need you to talk to me straight. It was just, so that was when I hit middle school pretty much.
We got another guest with us today, my sister. This anointed, I almost called her a girl. This anointed woman is something else, y'all. But I've known her since she was a little girl, so I still think of her as my little sister. I got to get over that. But we're here with Alexis Brown. She is the daughter of Pastor Lonnie W. Brown and Lady Frances Brown. So welcome, Alexis. Thank you for coming on with us. We're gonna delve right into this PK thing. This is an issue I don't think we talk about. We probably growing up as PKs didn't know how to talk about it to our parents. So I just want to shed some light on it. So let's just start with what you feel. What was the best and the worst part about being a PK?
I would say, can I start with the worst or do I have to start with the best?
Oh, no, you can go whatever order you want to go in.
Okay, I'm going to say the worst part is trying to live up to the expectations of everyone in ministry, outside of ministry, just everybody. That's the worst part. The best part, I would say, would be just having the presence of God in the home and having the peace in the home. You hear all the stories about people's crazy home lives, and I never had to experience any of that because God was always the center focus of the home. So
yeah, that's good. I guess I didn't even think about it in that respect. Now here's a question for you. What's the best part about being a PK?
Well, I tell you what, it's kind of like you're a celebrity. I don't know. It's kind of like you have a celebrity status within the church. People know who you are because my dad is Minister Brown and my grandfather is Pastor Brown, and like they're the first family, and so I'm a part of the first family. And so when I was in Kingdom Academy, I kind of walked around like I owned the place, and you might know, and I'm like, I could go in here and I can go in the office because my grandfather's a pastor and my dad's the boss. He's running things all over here. I used to go in the video center. I was like, what are you doing here? My dad, he's the branch director. He's in charge, so that to me was the best. I walked around, and then they eventually they just talked to me and said, just you can't do that anymore. You gotta walk in humility. You gotta have some humility. Come on. So
what's the worst? Well, what's the worst part?
The worst part? I say whenever we're having a good moment, like for example, we go on vacation a lot as a family. Obviously, we didn't do it last year, but every vacation we go on, every time, it never fails. My Nana we'll be playing a game or something, she'll be like, oh, Justice, Ethan, Leilani, come here. And then we go in her room. She's like, okay, gonna have a Bible study. Okay, so open your Bible. I'm like, oh my God.
You're gonna be in trouble.
No.
You are gonna be in trouble. If she sees this, you're gonna be in trouble, man.
Hopefully she doesn't see this. Hopefully. Man, I love you. I do.
Yeah, clean it up. Clean it up. Man, that's funny though. And I know it took a while for Pastor to even know how to vacation, you know what I'm saying, to even want to go on vacation. So I can understand that. How difficult was it for you, if at all, to kind of talk to when you wanted to talk to your dad? Is it difficult to talk to him as dad versus pastor? Or are you able to have that separation?
I can separate the two. I mean, as pastor, it's usually always from a biblical standpoint, meaning, as far as me, I can separate the two. I can talk to him about stuff that is related to ministry. And then I could talk to him about personal stuff, You know what I'm saying? Now, even with the personal stuff, it always comes back to biblical standpoint. So I didn't like that growing up, but now it's like I know that that's what it is. So you know, if you want the advice, take the advice, because that's what it's always going to come down to. It's always going to be the biblical standpoint, which isn't bad.
Right.
And I'm 33 now, so I know better now. But as a kid and a teenager, I did have moments where I'm just like, can you just tell me what you think? But
I don't need no principle. I don't need no words in different light right now.
right now. I just want to know what you think about it. But I'm used to it at this point.
That's good. How difficult was it to talk to just dad versus versus minister dad or mom? Both of your parents are ministers. How difficult was it for you, or maybe was it difficult for them to separate that when you wanted to talk to them about just something that's going on in regular life?
It's extremely difficult. It is. Just the other day, I was talking to my dad because I'm obviously in quarantine, and I was having some difficulties trying to adjust to this for the next 2 weeks or so. And I came into his room and I was like, I just want to talk to you. And he was just like, okay, yeah, let's. So first 1/3 of the conversation was, it was all right. And then he was like, well, the Bible says, you got your Bible up on your phone. The Bible says, we started Psalm 91. I'm like, oh, God. So, yeah. And it's, my mom, she's like, well, I do this confession every day and you should do a confession. Let me write you a confession. I'm like, I don't want a confession. Just talk to me, please. So
now you do know they're gonna be watching this, right?
Yeah, I love them both. They have
yeah, buddy, you might have to answer for that one. But I understand what you're saying though. I think sometimes it's difficult on both ends, but particularly for parents that are ministers to kind of turn it off, because you don't turn off being a minister, right? So sometimes we just want you to just take us for ice cream. You know what I'm saying? Just take us for ice cream. And so I get it, man. But now when you were growing up, as we all did you ever try to hide the fact that you was a PK at school, or were you teased or treated differently at all?
I wasn't in school. I mean, I went to Kingdom Academy though, so everybody knew who I was.
Good point.
Tried to hide anything because I never had to. I didn't hide it in high school either. I never tried to hide anything. I was kind of quiet in high school though, believe it or not. I kind of just stayed to myself. So I never had the need to hide it, if that makes sense.
Again, I didn't even think about the fact you went to Kingdom Academy. You can't hide it there.
When I first got to school, I did hide it a little bit. I was on the bus and I was sat in the back of the bus and I was just the quiet kid. Everybody was like, oh, he's a new kid. And, I don't want to be like the quiet kid. I wanted to have some friends. And so I would say things to them and I would talk like they talked. I started swearing a little bit. I didn't say the hard.
You was a
that isn't the hard F word, but I did say words you're not supposed to say. And I tried to fit in. And one day I came home from school. I got off the bus and my friends and I were walking to our houses and I had said something to one of my friends and he looked at me, he said, what? And then I stopped. And I feel like I told this to the teens before. And the Holy Spirit, I felt like I heard the Holy Spirit say at that moment, never say that again. And I couldn't move after that point. I couldn't walk forward with them. They were like halfway to their house. I'm still next to the bus stop. And so at that moment, I just really kind of, being a PK sometimes is difficult, but you still, a lot. And sometimes what it comes back to you. It's like, you're not supposed to be doing this. How to lead by example. All the stuff that you've been taught, your entire life. And all of a sudden it just washed over me. Oops, sorry about that. It just washed over me. And I changed after that point. I just said, you know what? I got to accept who I am and who my parents are and who my grandparents are. And I just got to live with it. And it's been great ever since.
Well, that's a good thing, man. So did your friends treat you any differently once they found out?
Yeah, they did. They stopped hanging out with me. Um, they did.
Oh,
And,
dang.
it hurt. It did, but I found some different friends who who were my friends because of who I was and what I believed in and not who I was trying to be, you know?
Okay. That's good. That's because I think it's important to note that all your friends aren't going to be your friends as you grow up. And it's very important to keep that circle of what you call your true friends small, because if you open up that circle too large, those friends that you think are friends, you're gonna find out are associates. You're gonna find out that they're only there for a season, and it's gonna hurt a little bit more. So that's good. I think that's good sound wisdom there. Um, I know you grew up with a certain group of people here in the ministry at Kingdom Academy, but was there ever any times of isolation or loneliness, or you felt like people couldn't understand what you were going through as being the daughter of the pastor and having that pressure you mentioned earlier to just, do everything right?
Yes, almost all the time as a
Mm.
teenager. Almost all the time as a teenager, definitely. But it kind of ties into trying to live up to everybody else's expectations of what I'm supposed to be. And a lot of times I would notice I was held to such a high standard, and some of these people, they kids or teenagers was out of control. And it's like, hold on, they doing this, but you expect me to be this angel of a person. I'm just a teenager too, So I had a lot of that growing up where I was
Yeah,
compared to a lot of people too.
I wonder if I wonder if people understand that sometimes we hide it as PKs, but even when we don't, there can be an isolation there on either side of that. There can be a little bit of loneliness on either side. Sometimes when we hide it, we kind of feel lonely because we're trying to fit in. We don't hide it, we may feel lonely because people like, they go that little church boy. That's what they used to say back in the day with us. That church boy, goody two shoes, whatever the case may be, they would call us. And I know it's, thankfully for you, the age of social media, the world has shrunken enough for people to not look at that as such a, like, wow, like seeing a unicorn. You know what I'm saying? People used to say, oh my God, you're the preacher's son? Wow. That's the way it used to be. But do you ever resent not just being able to be a kid and not having to worry about how your mistakes might look on your parents, or how other people might see your mistakes and think of it as a reflection on them, and just being able to make the same mistakes other kids make? Do you ever resent that?
Yeah, in a way, kind of. Um, I wasn't able to do things that normal kids would do normally. And then, I was kind of I was different though. I was different. I wasn't the one that was like all in on, let's smoke or let's drink or let's do all this stuff. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I guess it's kind of a deterrence from that kind of stuff, because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, and I'm thinking that people are going to be like, oh, how can Pastor Brown or Minister Brown tell me how to live my life if he can't even control his kid or his grandkid? That was kind of a deterrent. On top of all the stuff that they were telling me, they were training me, and then that deterrence is on top of that too. So, yeah, I mean, I don't resent not having a normal childhood. I got to thank them in a way for saving me from all of that other stuff. Because if I didn't have that training, and if I didn't have them to fall upon to get advice spiritually, I probably would be a totally different kid by now.
That's real good to let everybody know, because I'm like you. I didn't, because of that training, I didn't want to smoke. I didn't want to drink. I never had a desire to do it. You know, I know they talk about people rebellion and PK's rebellion. I never had the desire to do that. I'm far from perfect. Don't get me wrong, but I was always conscious of how it would look. You know, the family name. You know, that's the way. You know, that's what we were always talked about. You know, the name on the back of the jersey, because most sports teams got your last name on the back of the jersey, right? So that's what we always talk about playing for or living for, is that name on the back of the jersey. Did you ever feel like mom and dad put the church over you?
Um, I honestly can't say that I felt like that. No, not as a kid. I didn't sense that as a kid. And I don't know that I thought about it like that as a teenager either. Maybe as a young adult looking back, I might feel like they spent a lot of time on other people and their problems. So maybe some of the issues that I may have been facing or going through fell through the cracks, so to speak.
Gotcha.
They were spending that time on other people. But the older I get, the more I realize that maybe it wasn't so much me being ignored as much as them expecting me to just follow the footsteps that they were, following the footsteps that they were leaving me. They might have felt like I know better, so I should do better.
I mean, it's no doubt about being a pastor is a 7-day a week job. Even being a wife of a pastor, right? If your dad is busy at the church, your mom is busy doing, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes, you know, that can definitely leach over into our time as children, we might feel. But did you ever feel any bitterness towards the church or the people? Not that you were just hated anybody, but were you just like, man, could y'all leave my parents alone for a minute? I need them.
I think my most recent feeling, the like, I've never felt like that as a kid, but I have felt that recently. And that might be crazy. I have felt that way recently because I mean, going through a time where it's like, okay, I'm trying to talk to you. I need to talk to you. And their phones are ringing off the hook, So yeah, I felt that recently, but not as a kid. I don't think I went through that.
That's good though, because I think when I say PK and we think about us as young kids, but you never stop being a preacher's kid. You know what I'm saying? You never stop. As long as your father's still a preacher, you still a preacher's daughter. So that's good that to show that it continues out even into our young adult life. What about being voluntold to do everything? You know, I know you do a lot, and I know some of it you want to do and some of it not so much. But what about that? Listen, you gonna volunteer because you my son or you my grandson. How did that work for you?
Certain things, it was okay. Other things, it was just like, I hate this so much. And I'm sorry, Mom, but the sparkle pink and the Christmas, I mean, we had to put candy in bags. We had to open the candy, and then we had too many bags. Count all these bags for me. And I like to count all the bags, and then for Christmas, we had to put the candy in there. We had to put the toys in there. Obviously, you can't go home with a toy in a bag and some candy. You know, everybody else got to get something before you can. But yeah, I mean, for some things like cleaning the bathrooms, I don't really mind cleaning the bathrooms. But all this tedious stuff, like, yeah. And then one time, my mom wanted me to be an armor bearer for my poppy. And I was like, I don't want to be an armor bearer. And then so they pushed me into being an armor bearer. And I don't know if you were part of the team at the time I was being an armor bearer. But she bought me some pants. And she bought me this shirt. She got me a tie. And I was walking up there, and then she's like, okay, go take this Bible up to her right now. And it was after praise and worship. We just got up. I was like, what? Howard Sanders was like, here you go. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And so I went up there. I was shaking. I went up there, handed his Bible to him, and I was about to walk off. He said, Justice. I looked at him like, no, don't do that. This is my grandson, y'all. He's an armor bearer. He's my armor bearer today. I said, no. And everybody started clapping. I said, okay, all right.
You know what? That's really interesting. And I know growing up, I was in everything, any and everything, and it's a different time though. We were taught to just grin and bear it. That's probably excuse me. It's probably an expression you're not used to hearing, but it's basically put a smile on your face and do what I tell you to do. That's basically the idea. But let me ask you this: is having a ministers for parents, did that ever scare off any of the girls?
Well, you know me, I wasn't really a ladies' man per se. I couldn't get a girl, and then eventually I got one. But she was actually kind of interested in the fact that I had parents who were ministers and grandparents who were pastors. You know, she was all into it until she wasn't. So I don't know what happened there. So if she's watching this today, I still don't know. So, well, when I was in school, I wasn't one of those people who were afraid to be like, hey, I'm a Christian. You know, I would tell people, hey, I'm a Christian. And I'd be like, I get to go to church today on Wednesday. I would always dress up nice so that I didn't have to change clothes when I got home and stuff like that. And I guess in that kind of environment, people, you know, they're gonna be like, oh, well, he's a Christian and I don't necessarily believe in that. Or maybe they are a Christian, but they don't want anybody else to know that they're Christian. So by dating me or associating with me, they're like, oh, you know, they're a Christian. So I guess so, in a way, but I don't think it had anything to do with my parents being ministers. I think it had something to do with me identifying as a Christian.
So I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you taking some time out to stop back into the show. So I'll let you get back to whatever you're doing at home.
About to give me a haircut. You see this? This hairline is on an angle. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, you do need to get tightened up. So, all right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All righty.
Good. Now let's talk about you know what I'm sure a lot of people. I'm sure you heard a lot about. I'm sure it had to be difficult being a single mother, also as the daughter of the pastor, and having to go through that pregnancy and people looking at you funny and you know, talking behind your back, people saying this and that. How was just walk me through that? How you felt when you initially found out, when you knew you had to tell your parents?
You know what? I didn't. I think at that phase in my life, I didn't care. Okay. I did not care what nobody else had to say, because I looked at it like the ones that had stuff to say. I'm like, your kid got how many kids now? That's how I felt about it. I'm just being real with you. That's how I felt about it. And I'm like, I guess I wasn't a teen mom. I was 23 years old, so I was grown. Yes, the act of it is wrong. It's a sin, you know, but I did get a blessing out of that. And no, being a single mother was never easy. It wasn't. In fact, I used to joke about it like, this ain't the life for me. Like, like some single moms they were built for that. I wasn't. Like, I wasn't built for this. But yeah, I used to joke about it all the time. And even with my now fiance, now I tell him now, and I'm like, you know, I wasn't built for this. You know, kudos to the women that did this on their own forever. But thank God for that I don't have to do this forever, you know?
Did you ever feel any type of way when Pastor kind of talked about you in his messages, though? If it, not necessarily about that, but about anything, you know, maybe about just you not being the psalmist that he wanted you to be at the time. Did that ever bother you that he talked about it in the messages?
No, because my thought at that time, was, what I'm not going to be is fake. So if I want to do XYZ, I'm not going to play church. You know, it is one of those things where I'm not going to be a lukewarm Christian. Either I'm going to be all the way in it or I'm not going to be in it at all. when you know better, you do better. And I wasn't about to play with church, It's like, so no, I didn't care, because I'm like, I was doing my own thing. I'm like, I'm not ready for that right now. I'm like, I got to the point where I was tired of constantly being under everyone else's microscope. And I
Yeah.
felt like I'm grown now. So what they gonna say to me? That's just kind of the mood that I went through. I can be honest, right?
But that's real, because I mean, you and I have had that conversation before, so I know that you were going through that and that mindset then. But there's some PKs out here I mean, if I look at my social media, I mean, there's some out here that's really dealing with some issues, really having some issues and having a hard time dealing with it. Um, uh, you know, Suicide in a church is higher than it's ever been, and the pressure is really just getting to them. So it's refreshing to hear somebody who was able to say, you know what, I know what I've been trained to do. Right, I got the training. Right now, I'm just doing me. And I don't want to be mixing the two. And that's a good thing, because I think now the pressure is almost to mix the two, and to try to reach the youth that way. And I think that was just that's the wrong way to go about it. So I'm glad to hear that you're able to separate it. And that's different. That's different.
I think it was just, I was tired. I was tired of trying to live up to everybody else's standards. So I don't know that I would call it strength, or I would just call it burned out and tired. Like, I'm done with this type of deal.
I also believe that that's one of the main reasons for the flame out for PKs, because of literally fatigue and having to deal with pressure and expectations, and everybody knows the will of God for you, and they act like you can't seek God for yourself. A lot of people act like you still 10 years old and you 20 and you don't know nothing. And I believe that you hit the nail right on the head with that one. And I do want to say, because you mentioned, shout out to John, you scooped up a good one, good job. You better take care of my little sister. I will jack you up. It's all good though. And also shout out to Leilani. Your daughter is amazing to me. I still remember she was young, and I remember she said, she told me that she prayed for me one day, and it just blew my mind, because Leilani was really reserved and quiet initially, and I didn't even know she knew who I was. And I think it was when I started serving as armor bearer to pastor, and she told me she prayed for me one day, and it just broke me all up on this side. I just melted like a piece of butter. I was like, wow, this little girl just melted my little heart. And so when you said you got a blessing out of that, it's no doubt about that. I mean, she is amazing. You are an amazing psalmist. I tell you, and I want everybody to know, when I tell you Alexis can sing, it's not with an I. She can sing with an A. You know what I'm saying? And she's anointed though as well, and that's the key. But before you go, what do you have any advice for somebody who's growing up in the same situation that you were in as a pastor's daughter, and maybe they're struggling a little bit? What would you say?
My advice to them would be to only live up to your own standard when it comes to that. And what I mean by that is, of course, have some standards, of course. Don't be out here reckless. Don't do that. But what I mean by that is, judgment is going to be out there, and people are going to pass judgment on you left and right. But you have to be strong enough to not let it control you. Don't let the judgment of others control you.
All right. Well, that's sound advice right there. Alexis, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And
no problem.
I know I'll see you soon. I want to thank you for tuning in. Pray for me. I know this is you heard some venting, you heard some things getting off our chest, because it's the things that you got to imagine that some of the people that are dealing with right now. And so maybe they don't have the public forum. Maybe they don't have the ability to get it off their chest. Well, pray for us that we'll say something that helps them get past certain things. And like this video. We're going to be touching on some very specific things dealing with the family. And so this is going to be very important that we get some help getting this message out. So like it and share it. Once you like it, share it. And then make sure you're subscribed so that you get a notification when the next episode will air of anything on the channel. Now, if you want to reach out to me, you can reach me at khmsocialmedia@gmail.com or leave a message right under the video and I'll check it out there. Stay the course, execute the play, run to win. Until next time, stay safe, be blessed, we love you, take care.